It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10 live from Jerusalem, our top story. President Trump repositions America's stealth bombers as Iran warns the United States not to attack.
That would be very unfortunate, and I think that would be very, very dangerous for everybody.
While America decides Israel hits more targets inside Iran, including a nuclear research facility. And Iranian missiles strike Israel too as tensions escalate. President Trump is due at the White House shortly as he mulls whether or not to join the conflict. Meanwhile, in Cyprus, a British man with reported links to Iran is arrested on suspicion of spying and terror offences.
Also ahead on Sky News at 10 tonight, pro-Palestinian campaigners attack government plans to ban the activists who say they broke into an RAF base in Oxfordshire.
When you scribble on something, paint on it, it's non-violent protest, and it shouldn't be made the same level as a violent protest. It's unjust.
Passengers are evacuated from a train as the UK records the hottest temperature of the year so far. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30.
Good evening. Tehran has warned President Trump that American strikes on Iran would be very, very dangerous. The US president is due back at the White House shortly to receive security briefings as he continues to weigh up whether or not to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. Well, earlier, reports came in that the US is moving a number of B-2 stealth bombers to a base on the Pacific island of Guam, but their mission is unclear as missile and drone attacks continued today between Israel and Iran. Will Mr. Trump heed Iran's warnings to stay out of the conflict? Sky's Cordelia Lynch has tonight's first report.
Iran says it won't negotiate till this stops, but there's little sign it will. Another big Israeli attack, this one on the city of Avaz. In Isfahan, another strike on one of the crown jewels of Iran's nuclear program. The Israeli army claim they assassinated Mohammed Saeed Azadi too, a commander who oversaw proxy militias in the Middle East. 430 Iranians have been killed, according to the health ministry. But the rest of the world is only seeing snapshots of the suffering. From whatever angle you look, this is a perilous moment, and one with no pause. Iran warning the US if it joins the fight, it will be very, very dangerous.
It is obvious I cannot go to negotiation with the United States when our people are under bombardments, under the support of the United States. We have come, unfortunately, to the conclusion that the United States has been in this aggression from the beginning.
At a meeting of Islamic nations, Turkey's leader warned the war was nearing a point of no return, with only one side to blame.
I would like to say the following clearly. With all these attacks, the Netanyahu government has once again proved it is the biggest obstacle in front of regional peace. I strongly condemn Israel's attacks on Iran.
But Benjamin Netanyahu sees damage like this as evidence he must keep going. A drone from Iran hitting a home in northern Israel. And his government is openly preparing for a prolonged conflict.
So right now, we're about 50, 60 feet underground.
Aryeh Myers is at the forefront of Israel's emergency response.
The two main roles that we have are the EMS organizations and the blood services.
How much pressure have your teams been under in the last week?
A huge amount of pressure.
This is the Command and Control Center, where they dispatch medical teams to missile strike sites.
It's in a more protected area. So where we are at the moment is, again, 50, 60 feet underground in a protected space. If there are any red alerts, operations can continue completely uninterrupted. Because these missiles have got 1,000-pound warheads, they're causing scenes of devastation for 2-3 streets away from where the actual missile hit.
How does this compare to what you faced before?
So the size of the missiles that we're seeing at the moment is much larger than what we saw with, in most cases, with Hamas and in most cases with Hezbollah. Again, they have large weapons as well, but what we're seeing from Iran are very, very large missiles with huge capability for damage, for destruction. We've seen buildings that have collapsed.
This team first kicked into action hours after the October the 7th attacks. This building, deep underground, is heavily fortified. 3 floors down are some life-saving supplies. This is the National Blood Bank of Israel. Normally, they get up to 1,000 donations a day, but in the first few days of this conflict, that figure doubled to at least 2,000 a day, people trying to meet the moment in whatever way they can. There are no certainties. What started with a surprise assault by Israel now has no obvious exit. An existential test for both sides, with pride and preservation at the heart of the battle. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Tel Aviv, Israel.
Well, President Trump is due at the White House shortly as he continues to deliberate America's next steps. Well, Sky's David Blevins is joining us now from Washington. And David, there seems to be some movement here. We're seeing American hardware and military assets being moved. And of course, so is Donald Trump. He's on the move on his way to the White House at the moment.
Yes, there is continuing speculation here in Washington that US military action in the Middle East could be imminent, and it's fuelled by 2 things. The president's return to the White House this evening, that's not unscheduled. It was planned in advance, but it's still very unusual for Donald Trump to spend Saturday and Sunday at the White House, and equally unusual for him to be meeting with his national security team as often as he is. The speculation is also being fuelled by the departure of B-2 bombers from their base in Missouri. These are the very aircraft that would be capable of carrying out any bunker bombing of Iran's underground nuclear capabilities. Now, right now, they are flying west towards the Pacific region, not to the Middle East, but of course they could continue further around the globe until they reach the Middle East, should the president deem that necessary. We are hearing that the line of communication remains open between the United States and Iran, although Iran insists it will not engage in negotiation while Israel continues its bombing campaign. We are also hearing that there was a very tense phone call between the Americans and the Israelis on Thursday. Israel reportedly very unhappy about President Trump's suggestion that there should be a 2-week window for diplomacy to be given a chance. And all of this, I think, speaks to the challenge facing the president right now, with his own base divided, his own administration arguably divided. It's going to be the biggest call of his presidency to date.
Yeah, absolutely. David, thank you so much. Well, our data and forensics team has been looking at the US military assets being deployed around the region and how they could help Israel in its fight against Iran. Our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle reports.
Over the past week, Israel and Iran have traded missile strikes in the latest deadly conflict in the Middle East. But Israel is hoping to have support from America.
I may do it, I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
President Trump is mulling what to do next, but the Sky News Data and Forensics Unit has tracked US military movements, and we've assessed how they could be used to help Israel.
We start in Scotland. This is a C-17 Globemaster, filmed arriving at Glasgow's Prestwick Airport. Before landing in Scotland, it was in Jordan. There was also a C-130 Hercules there, another type of cargo plane. Between June the 16th and 19th, 63 US military planes in all travelled through Prestwick Airport and 2 other UK air bases. That's more than double the rate of arrivals earlier in June. And when we looked at the airspace over the Middle East, we spotted over 50 American military planes travelling in the region between the 16th and 19th of this month. Planes on flight tracking systems are only part of the picture, though. We can see planes that are emitting public signals. But in the skies, the picture looks more like this. This air tanker, was on flight tracking systems, but the 4 F-35 fighter jets that it accompanied weren't.
So for each fuel tanker, there's a very large handful of other planes which are not declared and you won't see in flight tracker. The ones that are interesting are the ones that have very strong fighting capability.
Fighter jets are harder to track, but not impossible.
The art of intelligence is to imply what we do know, and the implication is that there's a strong handful of F-16s, F-35s and F-22s.
F-22 Raptors are the most advanced fighter jet in the world and only used by the United States.
If America does formally join the Israeli offensive, these aircraft could be pivotal in the next stage of the attack.
So far, Israel has been targeting military bases in the west and in the centre of the country. If Israel wants to hit bases further east, experts say that F-22s could help protect Israeli bombers. The aftermath of this attack at a missile launch site in Kermanshah also suggests that Israel could be more efficient with America's help. Satellite imagery shows damage, which analysts suggest was created by small guided missiles. This rubble could be cleared and the launchers still used. To inflict lasting damage, Israeli planes would need to carry heavier bombs.
US refueling aircraft could make it possible for Israeli jets to carry bigger bombs longer distances.
America also has a bomb that Israel desperately needs, the bunker buster. You don't need to look much further than here to see why. Fordow nuclear facility. This secure nuclear base houses Iran's main enrichment site, and tunnels leading to its centrifuges are buried deep under the mountain. The £30,000 massive ordnance penetrator, or GBU-57, is the only missile with a chance of destroying it. Israel doesn't have any of these bombs, but America can deploy them with B-2 stealth bombers.
The United States has been building up its military capabilities in the region. But how Donald Trump decides to use those military capabilities still remains unclear.
That was Alistair Bunkle with that report. Now, in news elsewhere, a British man with alleged links to Iran has been arrested in Cyprus on suspicion of espionage and terrorism offences. It's reported that he had carried out surveillance on an RAF base on the island. The Foreign Office has confirmed that it's in contact with Cypriot authorities over the man's detention. Well, let's bring in from the Foreign Office our correspondent Serena Barker-Singh. Serena, just bring us up to date on the situation.
Yeah, so this news is concerning and alarming, as you say. Suspected Iranian spy has been arrested near an RAF base in Cyprus after intelligence suggested that he was planning a terror attack. Now, the man has been reported to have kept the RAF Akrotiri base on the island under surveillance and has had alleged links with Iran's Revolutionary Guard. Now, he was arrested on Friday after reports that he was observing the base carrying a camera with a long lens and 3 mobile phones. Now, the Foreign Office here say they are in contact with authorities in Cyprus regarding the arrest of a British man. And this is concerning because RAF Akrotiri is the UK's most important airbase for operations in the Middle East. And Keir Starmer only visited it in December. And when he did, he said, quite a bit of what goes on here, I can't be talked about all of the time. It's come under renewed scrutiny of all RAF bases now after Palestine Action. Also, protesters entered RAF Breeze Norton in Oxfordshire. The government said they were carrying out a full UK-wide review and that group could be prescribed very soon. But now with this new arrest, there's calls from Labour backbenchers tonight for the IRGC to also be prescribed, saying the situation is urgent. I think this new arrest will add to that growing pressure.
Yeah, Serena, thank you so much for that update. Well, we'll be watching all the developments from here on the ground with our correspondents across the world. But for now, Gillian, back to you in London.
Yalda, thank you. Pro-Palestinian campaigners have criticised government plans to ban the activist group, which says it infiltrated an RAF base yesterday. Members of Palestine Action broke into RAF Breise Norton and sprayed paint on aircraft in protest at British military support for Israel. Today, the organisers of a separate pro-Palestinian march in central London said the government's plan to prescribe Palestine action was outrageous, as our national correspondent Tom Parmenter reports.
Again, they marched. Thousands snaked through central London to continue showing their anger about the humanitarian disaster in Gaza.
There's no excuse for it now. Just stop. Stop arming Israel. Now they start with Iran. I mean, come on, who next?
Forget about religion and who we follow. As a human being, we've lost that main humanity.
The red overalls belong to a separate protest group called Palestine Action.
The government to potentially ban Palestine Action?
No comment.
This member didn't want to talk to us. It's the same group that broke into RAF Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire on Friday. They were on e-scooters and sprayed red paint onto 2 Voyager planes in an embarrassing breach of security for the Ministry of Defence. For the past 5 years, Palestine Action has also targeted British arms companies, accusing them of supplying Israel. Banks have been attacked. The red paint has become the signature of a furious protest group.
The UK government now intends to ban them, treating Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation. Becoming a member would be illegal. That's a move that's been branded outrageous by the group leading this protest.
They see it as non-violent, direct protest.
There has been a place for that in all political movements throughout history. In the struggle for the rights of black people in the US, in the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, in the struggle for women to have the vote, people took forms of non-violent direct action. Now imagine if we had the current government back in those days, we'd have been prescribing the suffragettes.
The singer-songwriter Paloma Faith was here too.
What do you make of prescribing an organisation like that?
I'm devastated. They're young students and they're basically trying to do something because they feel that our government's failing them.
A counter-demonstration in support of Israel was also set up in central London. It's a conflict that has familiar fault lines, as well as new and emerging tactics from the likes of Palestine Action.
They have terrorised working people for a number of years, and there are a number of serious violent charges that are going through the court system at the moment. So this was actually, I think, a long overdue measure.
Security is now being reviewed across MOD bases, while ministers finalise their next steps. But whether anything deters protesters when feelings about the Middle East are running so high is another matter altogether. Tom Parmenter, Sky News.
North East London NHS Foundation Trust is facing further questions after being found guilty of serious failings in the care of a young patient who took her own life. Now there are concerns over the deaths of 20 other patients in the Trust's care. A warning: this report from our health correspondent Laura Bundock contains references to suicide throughout.
The death of Alice Figueiredo has raised serious questions about the NHS Trust responsible for her care, now convicted of health and safety failings. These are the documents detailing a decade of deaths at the North East London Foundation Trust, known as NELFT, including Caris Braithwaite's, who was friends with Alice at school.
She was a very sweet girl, very kind. She struggled a lot with her life. She struggled a lot as a person.
In October 2018, Caris tried to take her life at a train station. She was admitted to Goodmayes Hospital, where Alice died. Staff discharged her the next day, and within an hour, Caris killed herself at a train station.
100% she could have still been with us if they hadn't done that ridiculous thing. You think about it, and none of that makes any sense whatsoever. The way it was dealt with does not make sense.
Caris's mother told us no family should have to endure this kind of loss and injustice. Without real accountability, mental health services will continue to fail those who rely on them the most. NELF told us they've carried out an in-depth review of patient safety, resulting in significant changes in the way they assess risk of suicide, as well as improving their record-keeping practices.
Since Alice's death, we've read all the subsequent coroner's reports which call for action and raise concerns about NELF. Each case different, but there are some strikingly similar themes, including failings to carry out adequate risk assessments and issues with the sharing and recording of information and incidents.
One patient was marked as alive and well, even though he'd taken his own life the day before. Another told staff he was hearing voices telling him to kill himself, yet staff failed to remove the items he later used to take his life. Last year, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, gave this damning assessment of the Trust.
I'm very aware of NELF, not least because NELF has and continues to appear in the headlines for providing really poor quality care. So if we want to name and shame, I'll do the name and shaming alongside the naming and praising.
Chantal Cushion was admitted to Goodmayes Hospital last year after attempting to take her own life.
We feared every day that the police would turn up to say Chantal's dead. She was in danger in Goodmayes Hospital. She wasn't safe.
Chantal was on suicide watch but escaped from her ward 20 times.
One day, Chantal was told by a nurse, "Don't kill yourself on my shift, wait until you go home and kill yourself." She was told by a nurse. That's not care. That's not helping people. That's telling them, yeah, it's okay, do it, but don't do it at a hospital.
We put these concerns to NELF, who told us they can't comment on individual cases, but said patient safety is our absolute priority, and we work closely with our patients and their families to ensure we provide compassionate care tailored to their needs. The Trust insists changes have been made, but for many it's not nearly enough. Laura Bundock, Sky News.
And if you've been affected by that report, you can reach out to the Samaritans for help by calling 116 123 or emailing joe@samaritans.org. The details are on the screen now. The sunken British super yacht, the Bayesian, has been raised from the seabed, and now investigators in Italy are preparing to examine the hull of the ship. Billionaire Mike Lynch and his daughter were amongst the 7 people who died after the ship capsized off the coast of Sicily last summer. Fraser Maud reports.
Slowly and carefully, inch by inch, the wreck of the Bayesian is brought to the surface 10 months after it sank off the Sicilian coast. The 56-metre super yacht sank in a thunderstorm last August, killing 7 people, including British tech tycoon Mike Lynch and his daughter Hannah. This has been a complex operation. The seabed here is 50 metres below the surface of the Tyrrhenian Sea, and the $40 million Italian-built yacht weighed more than 540 tonnes, even before it was filled with water. Its huge 72-metre mast was removed with a remote-controlled cutting tool and left on the sea floor to be recovered later. That allowed the Bayesian to be lifted using a complicated system of straps, slings and harnesses. The salvage expert who recovered the Costa Concordia 11 years ago says the whole operation is being carefully monitored to protect any potential evidence and to respect the dead.
Obviously, potential crime scene. I would say hopefully that the crime scene itself is starting to go into like an investigation of what actually happened. People died, so it's a graveyard. From a team perspective, you've got to maintain absolute secrecy on board. You certainly don't want social media being filmed live and sent by the salvage team over social media to many platforms.
Once the delicate process of recovering the Bayesian is finally completed, it will be transported to a nearby port to allow further, more detailed investigations into how it sank. Fraser Maud, Sky News.
At least 8 people have died after a hot air balloon caught fire and fell from the sky in Brazil. Authorities say there were 21 people on board when the balloon crashed in Praia Grande in the southern state of Santa Catarina. Survivors have been taken to nearby hospitals. Every newborn baby in England will have their DNA mapped as part of a new NHS scheme. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says it will enable the NHS to be in front of disease rather than reacting to it. Kensington Palace has shared a new photo of Prince William to celebrate his 43rd birthday. The picture was taken by the Princess of Wales earlier this month at Windsor and features the Prince with their family dog Orla, along with her 4 puppies. Prince William plans to celebrate his birthday quietly at home. Researchers are warning that almost 600 people in England and Wales are predicted to die as a result of this week's heatwave. Experts, including some at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, say they've used decades of statistics to predict excess mortality during hot spells. Today, the UK recorded the hottest day of the year so far, with temperatures of more than 33 degrees in Surrey. Shaman Freeman-Powell reports.
The cool before the burn. Early risers taking in a golden sunrise at Stonehenge, as the summer solstice marks the longest and hottest day of the year so far.
I couldn't have asked for better conditions for it. It's so beautiful. It's fantastic. There are so many people here just enjoying the moment, and it's very good. And especially this year, it's warm.
But the blazing sun comes coupled with amber weather warnings and safety concerns, with a projection that around 600 people could die as a direct result of the heatwave. And as the day warmed up, many went searching for spots to cool down. And it's no surprise that some were tempted by the Thames, but the RNLI warned that even water comes with risk.
Our part of the Thames here is tidal, the sea's tidal. Tidal currents can be very, very strong and can easily sweep you off your feet, even if it's just around your knee height. Wherever you are, even if the top of the water feels warm, there's likely to be a cold layer underneath that. That cold layer can be very dangerous.
On dry land, the heat for these passengers became unbearable. Locked inside of a hot and humid train as they attempted to travel to Brighton. But due to the fault, scores of passengers ended up walking the tracks near Loughborough Station, dragging their luggage in the soaring heat.
For now, we're going to take a short break.
Over in Leeds, it was other elements that were the cause of disruption. Intermittent rain cast a shadow over a test match in Headingley, temporarily stopping play for cricketing rivals India and England. As the warm weather warnings end in the early hours of Sunday, threats of thunderstorms are to follow. The heat and humidity expected to fuel torrential downpours. Shaman Freeman-Powell, Sky News.
From the weather to the sport, let's get the latest now with Josh.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Andrea, 2 years on from your departure from Leeds United, how pleased are you to see them back in the Premier League?
I'm very happy. As a fan of Leeds, as ex-chairman, I'm very, very glad for the fans that they are finally back in where they belong, the Premier League. And it is a big release for me because honestly, I had a very traumatic and difficult exit, and finally I feel now that the destiny adjusted everything, and I can come back to Leeds soon.
Do you still speak to Parag Marathe and the ownership group?
Yes. I speak to him normally a couple of times every month, and we stay in touch during the season. We comment about Leeds, we comment about other football trends, but particularly about Leeds. And we just spoke recently this week when he was in Leeds, but also he was busy in Rangers for looking at new opportunity. I think Parag and the guys involved supporting him and the new management will have the credibility and the experience. They know how to take it to the next level. So they can take back the route and the direction to bring back Leeds as a, I hope, top club and back to Europe one day.
How difficult will it be for Leeds, that jump from the Championship back to the Premier League, because you've done it, and with success in that first season under Bielsa, Leeds finished 9th.
The gap between the Premier League clubs and the newly promoted club is getting bigger and bigger. In the last 2 seasons, basically all the club promoted bounced back to the Championship. So this showed that the category is another level. It requires investment, it requires a new project, it requires a football transition, in some cases revolution in the squad. And sometimes when you do the right recruitment, it can work very well. Other times not. So that's also what we paid in the moment we had the transition with Bielsa to Jesse Marsh. We changed. I remember we sold 2 players, we bought 7, and unfortunately the recruitment was not successful for us to maintain the category. Same is when you come from the Championship to Premier League, the challenge is very big.
So the recruitment, you feel, is key to make that
absolutely
transition successfully.
Yes. And in our case, I think the mistake probably I've done and we have done is with the management is that we didn't hire enough players with maturity and experience in the Premier League, but we bet on players with high quality but no experience in the Premier League. So we brought in a lot of players from Austria or Germany or other country with no absolutely 0 minutes in English football, and that I think is a big gap.
The redevelopment of the stadium, you were heavily involved in the early stages of this. How key is that?
Important, because it brings new revenue, new opportunity, it modernises the club, it gives a big...
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Well, that was your Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by political correspondent for The Spectator, James Heal, and political journalist Alicia Fitzgerald. Now, amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of The Observer. Its headline, closing in. Trump sends B-2 bombers to Guam. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.